Yeah.
It was the
Mark, can we
19th
do
last
that?
year.
I don't know if you guys have
Okay.
to work so hard to get everybody off on the
That
same
Mark.
line together. That's
It's January this year.
Hit my car one more time.
Well, that's when you're going to celebrate Christmas.
I got 2 new grandsons.
Call to order the Planning and Zoning meeting for Monday, December 10th, 2018. Roll call, please.
Tony Gokenbach, Mark Heidrich.
Here.
Mark Kleesner.
Here.
Mark Piontek. Tom Holtmeyer.
Here.
Sandy Lucy.
Here.
John Borgman.
Here.
Chuck Watson. Samantha Wacker. Carolyn Witt.
Here.
Sal Maniac.
Here.
Please rise for a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the November 13th, 2018 meeting. You've had a chance to review those. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
First and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 3, case number 181103, Jack Hagedorn. Applicant is requesting a rezoning from R2 two-family residential to R1C single-family attached. It goes along with item number 4, case number 181104. Jack Hagedorn applicant is requesting a preliminary plat for 505 and 507 West 2nd Street.
Yes,
Sal?
so I'll have one presentation here, and then we can have 2 motions at the end. So this is located at just west of the corner of Olive Street and 2nd Street. It is one of the existing townhomes there, the duplexes, and like we've seen multiple times the past few years, they are wishing to subdivide and rezone to the single-family attached in order to sell. The reason it has a November date is we had some issues finding the correct owner on one of the units, but that's why it got postponed from last meeting to this month, but we have the correct signatures on the plat, and so we're all good to move forward. Just to show you, this is all still R2 overlay, so eventually all of these will have to go through this if their bank financing requires it. You can see the cottage apartments, our cottage park units to the rear are zoned correctly, so that's the zoning they're requesting. And here's the plat. It meets the minimum requirement of 6,100 square feet, just above for each. And it does show the easement in the back for the cross-access driveway that exists, so.
Any questions, comments by board? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on it?
Sal, I assume he owns the whole building?
No, so that's why we had to wait for both signatures.
Okay.
So Jack Hagedorn came in as the applicant, and then we had to push it because we didn't have the signature of it's condoed out right now, and we didn't have the signature approving the request to rezone for the other owner. The name actually that we had on there had passed away, and so the owner was from out of state. And so once you track them down, they signed it and sent it to us, and so they did approve. And we got the correct names on this plat as well.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone else like to speak? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those, well, let's do a motion on 181103 first.
A motion to approve.
First,
Second.
second.
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to the preliminary plat for the address, 181104. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Moving on to item number 5, case number 181201, Doug Regal. Applicant is requesting to rezone 807 West 5th Street from R3 to R1B, single-family residential. Goes along with item number 6, case number 181202, Doug Regal. Applicant is requesting a preliminary plat for Birchwood Plat 2. Sal.
Yeah, so this is a similar request, but the motive is a little bit different. It's not necessarily because of the fact that the financing is requiring it. This whole parcel is the Birchwood Court Apartments just off 5th Street. These are the apartments off Horn Street that it backs up to. Right now, this entire piece is one parcel, including the home that accesses 5th Street. This is 807 Fifth Street. And so they are requesting to subdivide this and break off this home to have it be sold on its own. And then in order to do so, they have to rezone it to have it be, bring it into, to meet the standard of the code. Right now, it's grandfathered in, being used as a single-family structure, even though it's zoned and on a parcel with multifamily. So they're just breaking it off. You can see the zoning here. The entire parcel is R3. They do have the R2 overlay in this area for people who want to do two-family. They're requesting the one family. You can see the R1B just across the street. So here's the plat. Here's where we had to get a little bit creative to avoid a variance. They were able to create a lot here, 1A, that does meet the minimum square footage for R1B, 6,300 square feet. And the reason that this backlot, the 1B, has this shape here is they have to have a minimum of 50 feet for the right at the 50 foot of width at the right-of-way. And so they meet that here, and it does get a little bit narrower back here, but the code only requires it at the building setback, so there's no issue there. And it actually does follow pretty much that asphalt driveway there. And so that there's no need for a cross-access easement since that does remain on Lot 1B. There is a driveway off from 1A to 1B. We are not requiring a cross-access easement there because in R1B, we do not require off-street parking. A lot of the buildings, a lot of the single-family homes downtown don't necessarily have driveways or garages, so we don't require that. If they wish to have that, they could add it, but it's not something we would make them put on the plat. Other than that, we are recommending approval. It's really just bringing it into conformance. Right now, the single-family home has been grandfathered essentially with the use, and so they're just bringing it up to code and then allowing the back apartments to remain as is.
So Sal, the lot line, it just runs right along the driveway, so the east lot line is right on that. It's just hard to see in the
Yes.
plat.
So it is line is essentially where the east end of the driveway is.
Okay, but that's B. So A is the lot, that's the lot line for A. Okay.
Yes,
That's what I was trying to
sorry.
make sure I understood correctly. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments by board? If not, anyone in the audience like to comment on it? There's no further discussion. We'll entertain a motion on item number 5/18/1201 first for the rezoning.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
First and the second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 6, case number 18/1202, the preliminary plat for Birchwood. No further discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Moving on to item number 7, case number 18/1203, voluntary annexation, Ed Schmelz, Highway 100 and Bluff Road. Applicant is requesting to annex 19.5 acres located at the intersection of Highway 100 and Bluff Road. Sal?
Yes, so this is what's widely known as the Hazel property, located at the intersection of Bluff Road and 100. The access currently is on Highway 100 just across from the ZX. That's the existing access. You can see the gravel road that went to the old, where the fireworks stand used to be. And so this entire piece here, you can see this is fairly flat, but oh, you know what, I apologize. There's actually a second parcel here. I meant to highlight this as well. This is part of the 20 acres. It's 2 parcels. So that's why it does go all the way to the Bluff Road intersection, but the access is further east. But this is the main area that is buildable, but the full thing will be annexed, so I'll fix that before we get to council. The description does include both parcels. And so they're requesting to bring it in as R3 multifamily residential. In this location on the master plan, we do show it as a commercial corridor as most of the areas along Highway 100. So it is going against the master plan slightly in that area. I will say that, we approve or have recommendations that come in before us often that don't always match that master plan. That is, a corridor. It's something that we put into 2013 that we think that it could be utilized in the future. With that being said, I don't think the requested use is inappropriate. multifamily residential is, with that higher density residential, this is an appropriate area for it. There's no single family in the vicinity. It's directly across from an existing gas station and industrial park. And then the largest piece right here is a church, which is commercially zoned. So even if this property were to develop in the future and be single family, I think it would be a good buffer between the highway, the industrial, and then back into maybe future single family. And then I just wanted to point out as well, because we do have in the master plan two goals set forth. That one is to diversify the city's housing options, and one to provide more entry-level housing, which I think allowing this additional R3 zoning would meet those goals. So I just wanted to bring that up. We are recommending approval of the annexation and the proposed zoning. You can see it is adjacent to existing city limits, so there's no issue in that regard. So, and there's no access requirements. Like I said, we would not require any new infrastructure prior to it being annexed.
Any questions, comments by board?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
First of all, I think Highway 100 along that stretch is limited access, correct?
I don't think it is this far west. That would be,
Okay.
yeah, up to MoDOT if they wanted to approve additional access. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, I thought once you got to Washington West, the limited access went away.
Okay.
I didn't think it went all the way to the end of the city limits, because I know in front of the industrial park, Hydeman, it is not.
Okay.
So if they
Yes,
wanted
I guess-
additional access, they would have to get approval from MoDOT.
Well, then I guess that's my concern. If we're talking multifamily, you're talking quite a few vehicles coming out on the highway, and if the state would have any, I hate to see us make a zoning change and then state come in and say, you know, you're not going to have another access. That's the only access we're going to have. And is it far enough away from the Bluff Highway 100 interchange that we just made the improvements to not affect traffic in and out of that area also?
Right. So they wouldn't be able to close this access. I mean, this is an existing access. If anything, it would be further west, so I don't think there'd be any issue with the Bluff Road intersection.
Okay.
It would be as if it's too close to the existing. Typically, MoDOT, I think, has 225 feet between access points on restricted highways. But that is something that we would leave up to the applicant to get approval from them. And that's kind of how we've done it in the past. You know, we wouldn't, as far as I'm concerned, we wouldn't hold back any rezoning request if MoDOT may or may not approve.
So if they would have to change something, they would have to come back to us and change the zoning again if MoDOT would make it more restrictive that they couldn't use it for an R3.
Well, I don't think MoDOT would,
No?
MoDOT
we're
would
not
make it-
requiring a second
yeah.
access. We would,
MoDOT would look at the intersection in relation to the existing highway
Right.
and intersections, and I don't think they're concerned if it's commercial or residential or.
right.
Okay.
Sal, based on the map, is that second access there further west, is that also in this parcel or no?
Well, there is on,
Because I'm looking.
no, this here is not. So this actually, I'm sorry, it does, that highlighted portion, it's actually a little bit too far west. This is a driveway, a private drive that goes to this residence.
Okay, I wasn't sure, based on
Yeah.
what you're showing up there, if that was part of it or not.
Nope, this, yeah, so this is an easement that goes in between these properties.
Okay.
Sal, how far did the city utilities go out in that direction?
We have water directly on the other side of the street, so I think there's a 12-inch line, I believe, that goes down Bluff, and then I want to say 8-inch line that goes down WW Industrial Park Drive. So there we have most likely some type of boring that would have to take place to get the water over, but sewer is on site. Sewer does cross and run up to the church. Obviously, the church has water, so I guess there's a chance they could bring it down from there, but it'd be up to them, whatever's cheaper, or whatever's easiest, I should say, to get water there.
So the church is currently,
On public services, yes.
And Sal, I guess if I'm looking at this right, too, the second parcel actually does line up with where Bluff Road was just improved.
Correct, and we actually,
Potentially could hook into that, right?
correct, so actually, before this applicant came forward, we talked to the owners, and I made a call to Judy Wagner with MoDOT, just saying, is it possible to get access there? She said it could be. You know, this intersection now is set up to have a full-way light if needed. There would probably need to be some right-of-way acquisition onto this neighboring property owner, because the intersection would be wide enough that it wouldn't be able to fit directly on here. So it would most likely, if they were ever to go that route, they would have to talk to this property owner as well. But it's not like MoDOT isn't going to require that to be built to maintain access. They can utilize their existing, but if they wanted to go that route, it would be on the developer, and then they would have to acquire additional right-of-way.
The only other question I had is I noticed there's a discrepancy in the acreage listing, what you have as record and then what is signed on the last page, where it says 20.04 acres and 19.35. So,
Well,
I didn't know how critical
I took
that
my acreage was from the county, which we will always take a survey that is signed and sealed, or whatever's submitted. We will take that. We'll take the legal description over whatever's given, whatever's on the county's record. So I don't think I realized that was separate. 20.04, which is signed and from the surveyor and legal description. So that is what we would.
More
I
or
see what you're
less.
saying. The exhibit has 19.5.
I'm just a stickler for details.
I'm sorry, yeah, so I think the 20.04 from the Hazels they must have thought that's what they had, but the legal description says 19.5. So we go by what the legal description
Legal
says.
description. Okay, very good.
And at the end of the day, it's the county who has to take this legal description and draw it on the official maps, and so they'll make sure everything matches.
Very good.
Any other question, discussion by board members? Anyone in the audience that would like to speak?
I mean, I would like to hear, if the applicant's here, right? I'd like to hear a little-
Well, look who's here.
Haven't seen you guys in a while.
Oh,
We're missing
We
you.
missed you. I thought I'd come in, say hi.
It's a Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Cameron.
So yeah, my name is Cameron with Wonderlick Survey Engineering. The applicant tonight, Ed Schmelz, is here. This is Ed's. We've done a lot of work for Ed in Union, and he got fortunate enough to find a property here in Washington to bring some development over here. So you guys have had some discussions tonight about things, and I guess just kind of back things up a little bit. We've investigated the water, sewer access, buildability, and all that. Actually, Ed had the opportunity to sit in a site plan meeting. Was it last Thursday? Yes. Well, let's see, not last Thursday, but I guess.
The one before, yeah.
One before that. And so we talked about access and sewer and water and kind of the way it looks for the layout. So you guys have kind of hashed those questions out tonight, but I guess I would be here to answer any more questions, or Ed's here to answer any more questions since we're here.
Well, Cameron, I'm just curious if you can kind of give us an overview of what the plan, what the concept is.
Yep.
Yeah, so Samantha, real quickly, let's see, make sure I get the right one here. There we go. Yeah, real quickly, Samantha, basically as we laid out, I think it was 5 or 6, 18, or 6, okay, so 6 16-unit apartment complexes, so there'll be 6 3-story apartment complexes. I'm sorry, 2-story, I'm sorry. Too many projects. So they'll be basically start laid out about right here and go west is where they'll go to. It's kind of hard to see, but the creek comes in right here. The creek comes in here too close to do anything in this corner, you might say. So the bulk of the development will be away from and west of that intersection here.
Okay.
So that's based, and the buildings will, the end of the building, so if you can imagine an approximate, I'm going to guess, I don't hold me to it, but approximate 50 by 90 foot structure, 110 foot structure, the 50 foot end will face the 100 side, so the end units, so the end of the 2 bedrooms, the end, so it's like as you look at it, it's a series of bedrooms, stairwell, is that right? Yeah, so, and so that's kind of what it looks like. What else would you like to know?
target market for these apartments?
I'll tell you what, I'll let Ed come up and speak to you about that.
Great. And access, what are you are you thinking it's going to tie into the Bluff Road intersection?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
thinking that little
Right,
thing will-
right. So, Sal, you want to go back to the first sheet? No, yeah. So basically what happened was we're going to utilize the existing access here.
Okay,
And we discussed having a secondary access on the road, and I'll let Ed and Sal talk more about that. I wasn't present in that meeting. But if there is a need for, if there is a need for second access, this is not limited access. This is limited access from here out, but from here west, it's not limited access.
okay.
So there won't be a problem.
So you can have an access?
Correct. We just have to apply to MoDOT, to make sure that it meets the guidelines. But what Sal mentioned about the 225 on an unrestricted state road, that's in line with what we know about the access.
Are you planning your sprinkler?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Gotta ask.
Yes. And,
It's always your job.
and to answer the question, there was a water line that was bored underneath the road up here for the church at the time that was built. And so we'll probably most likely be tapping it there and running it down. And as Sal mentioned, there's a sewer line that runs underneath right here between the east side of Becky's Carpet and Tile and then goes west. So we'll be tying on the sewer there.
Good.
So you said it's basically 96 two-bedroom units, is that right?
Yeah, I'll let Ed come up and speak to you
Okay,
about that.
Great. Thanks,
Yeah, while he's
Cameron.
caught up, I will mention, so after we amended our code, with 20 acres, you could get technically up to 294 units, but that does not take in parking, stormwater, and all that.
Right.
So obviously, that would be taken down. So 96 is what he originally submitted, which when he came to site plan last week, which obviously met the code, so.
Hello, everybody. Ed Schmeltz with ELS Properties. Oh. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, to answer your first question, our target market is basically the blue-collar person on this. There's a lot of factories out that way of town, and there's not a lot of residential out that direction. We're also looking to pull people probably that are working in New Haven, in the factories out there. There's a very big shortage of housing in that area, so we're looking to kind of target that person. We have 96 units planned. 3/4 of them will be 2 bedrooms. The other quarter will be 1 bedroom. So no 3 bedrooms. It's not really looking for the families. We're not really targeting that area of the market. So hopefully that answers your question on that.
Do you have a sense of just the price range on the rents?
We're looking at $675-ish on the 1 bedrooms and $775 on the 2s.
Okay. Plans for parking?
2 units, two parking spots per unit for sure. Each building, they're laid out perpendicular to Highway 100. So each building will basically have two fronts, 2 facades to them. So there's parking on both front and back of every building. Well, 2 fronts. So you can get in either direction.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Anyone else? If there's no further discussion, entertain a motion.
I move that we approve.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goes to council.
Next Monday.
Next week,
17th.
17th.
Right.
Well, a week from today.
Yep, thanks.
But it will not be voted on that night. So annexation has to have a public hearing. We have to wait 15 days. So it actually won't be voted on until January 22nd,
All right,
which is a Tuesday because of the holiday.
Okay. Very good.
great. Sal, any other?
Yeah, so we got a code amendment on there, and Mark is familiar with this. So Mary Trentman, our city clerk, contracted with a consulting firm, I think about a year ago, just to go through our entire code. So not just our planning and zoning code, but the entire code you see there, and make sure it is not only uniform, but kind of modernize it a little bit. Everything from making sure it doesn't just say he in some sections, that it uses the proper pronouns, and to make sure it mentions, the codes are cohesive when it mentions a staff member. There were some areas where it would say zoning administrator, like we cleaned up last time, versus zoning enforcer. Same thing with in this section, a public works superintendent. We had to kind of clarify that. And so I know this may be kind of confusing what was in your packet. The highlighted section is what is being proposed, and since technically it is in our planning and zoning, our chapter 400, it has to go before you all first. And this is how the consultant did it. They would have the highlighted section and then a decision that we can have, and they give a recommendation. So you can see that on the first section, they have to just make sure it's uniform, that superintendent is changed to the director of public works.
The other way around.
Oh, I'm sorry. The director of public works is changed to superintendent, who is Kevin Quatham. And so we just uniform that to make sure it says it throughout the same throughout each. And then the section where it actually says, it has it highlighted where it says the director of public works. And then the other change in here was to an appeal to the Board of Adjustment. So this is actually, obviously the other board that hears variances. It is part of Chapter 400. It was a recommendation of the consultant to add this language that's underlined, that if there is an appeal made, it can be taken by any person aggrieved by a neighborhood organization as defined in Section 32.105, representing such person. I believe that is just taken straight from the state statute, correct?
That's correct.
So that's just clean up our code to make sure it matches the state law.
Now, what page are you on?
That would be,
It's on the last
it says
page
87,
that
it's the
you
last
have.
page of the packet, or second
Yeah, I
last
think-
page of the packet.
Right.
It is the second to the last page. The bottom of the page, kind of the last paragraph there.
Okay.
And so I would be looking for a motion to make the changes as recommended by consultant.
Any discussion? We'll have a motion.
Motion to, oh, go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Okay.
Anything else?
And then I had Gina pass out one more thing. I'm just going to do this quickly because I'm going to give you guys some homework.
Oh, over the holidays?
Yeah, over Christmas break. You're getting homework.
Oh, you're a bad team.
I'm going to give you a book to read and you write a report on.
My
So,
dog
and
is-
I am going to take some blame here. I promised John that I was going to do this in 2018. So at least I'm getting it. So the decision is not going. There's not going to be any proposals amended in 2018, but at least we'll have the section of the comprehensive plan. We are at the halfway point for our comprehensive plan. We don't hire a consultant or anything and do the big change. We do that every 10 years. So since we adopted it in 2013. This is the halfway point. I don't imagine having big changes in this implementation strategy. This is our list of goals and objectives. For everything, you can see transportation and infrastructure. Some of this, I just won't go through it, and you can see that there may not be a lot of changes to it because it doesn't necessarily affect this board, especially if it's something to do with utilities or public works. But there is some stuff in here when it comes to aesthetics that we can talk about if we want to say if we're not meeting that goal, there could be some proposed code changes to help meet these goals, as well as when it comes to land use, obviously, is the big one. And so my goal is to kind of come back with a report card. We kind of talked about this internally and decided not to do a public forum like we did when you do the big one where you bring people in, because we're not really wanting to change these. It's kind of just scope where we think as a board how we've been hitting these goals. And if we're not hitting a lot of these objectives, then what we need to do to maybe try and facilitate over the next 5 years how to start hitting these. And so not only pick some objectives that maybe we haven't met, but then come up with a game plan of how we're going to facilitate that. And so that, again, won't necessarily be an amendment. I think that's something that we can just come up with a strategic plan without making an amendment to this. It's just picking things we want to focus on. But one thing I do want everyone to look at, and I'll pull it up, it's the last page, the map that Gina printed out. for us on 7.5 by 11 that I would actually like to adopt in the new year. Because as property continues to develop, we have to have this in our arsenal, that if the property owner that's ready to annex and come in with a layout, we want to say, nope, this is the layout you need to match. And since we've already made some changes to this, I want to have the master plan reflect those changes so we're ready if that property develops. And so in green are the 3 changes I want to propose right now, and then I'll obviously over the break, if you guys think of any future connections that we think may be appropriate or you may want to change that we've had on here. And I apologize, to make it zoom in a little better, I cut off the list on there, but if you go to the actual comp plan online, you can see what these numbers are matching with. But the first one here is just east of number 12. If you remember, we actually agreed to take off number 11 and move it north whenever Kurt had his proposal and we did Malvern Hill. We had some, and John Nilgis, our city engineer, looked at this and realized that it was actually more feasible to have a bridge further north because it is deeper, but the ravine is shorter. And so it would be a cheaper bridge rather than a really long culvert in that location. And it just made more sense having all this traffic go directly to Phoenix Center, and that is a more direct route than if it had to cut through and make 2 turns through residential streets in Stonecrest. So that's one change I want to reflect. Luckily, the owner of this property, Kurt Understall, is aware of this. But if he were to sell it, we didn't want someone coming in and proposing something and saying, well, I'm going to put a cul-de-sac here because your master plan doesn't have that. So we want to reflect that change right now. And also number 11, where you can see this green just south of it, I would actually be adding a number. There is a stub street on English Crest right now, and we thought, well, there's no reason to, the stub street is there, Clay Camp property eventually, will most likely be developed. And so we want to keep some type of east-west connection shown here over to Beaker, this be Rabbit Trail and Beaker Road. As you get further south here, this creek is substantially less significant. And so we think it's realistic to have that connection shown here, because if this were all to fill in and at the density rate that we've been seeing, the 7,500 square feet lot size, this could be fairly dense here. And so if you have, if that's all full one day and you have the only connection east-west right here at this bridge, that could be an issue later. And so we want to have another connection further south. So basically just splitting the difference what we saw here and adding one to the north and adding one to the south. And then lastly, just north of 19 here, this is actually just a change to reflect a portion of what we've already seen today. This connection 19 is already shown from, there is an access on Highway 100 here. There's an old house that's been abandoned since Kurt bought it, and we show a connection over to Pottery Road. We've talked about that when the Camp Schrader piece came in, that we would like that connection to be made over to now what Kurt has started at Highland Meadows. And so this proposal here would have Don Avenue actually go, it doesn't necessarily have to be Don Avenue, but where Don Avenue is right now, go directly west to Pottery Road, and then keep that connection there where MoDOT is. So if this were to develop Highland Meadows as proposed right now as a major commercial development with 2 major anchors and a lot of outlots, we would see, kind of like we have in Phoenix Center, outlots here on the north of Don Avenue, and then the larger anchors to the south, and then we could have a second access to Highway 100 that may eventually need to be widened. Now that would be very similar to what happened when Phoenix Center was developed, that MoDOT realized the need for it. Even though this is technically restricted, there is an existing access there. In order to widen it, MoDOT would have to see substantial traffic increase. And so this would all have to be developed, but I do think having it in our master plan would help us and the developer in the future to show, look, as this develops, we had this connection shown. And so that's just what we wanted to reflect in the master plan. Obviously, if you go through that list, it does list a number of projects that we've completed, and so we will also update that and then add new overlays that John and Andrea have actually already planned. High Street is not on here as an overlay, but in 2020, High Street will be completely overlaid and be adding sidewalks. So stuff like that, we're applying for that grant, I should say. We will be adding those overlays and then taking off the ones we've completed. And it can't hurt to do kind of like completed as promised. We can figure out what we have finished in the first 5 years, and we'll be able to show that as well.
Okay.
So.
And you said that this more information you could see online?
Yeah, I apologize. It was the easiest way to zoom in. If you look at this online, it's page 76 of the comp plan. I've gone to that enough times now. Well, now I'm guessing myself. Yeah, 76. It shows another side here with the table showing what all those projects are, and you'll recognize the ones that have been completed or under construction. And what we'll probably do is even the ones that we know we have slated, like we've secured funding for. I mean, East West Gateway funds are 3-year slates. To make room, we'll probably say under bid or funding secured, so we can move them down off the priority list and move something else up. Super. So
Can you give us real quick, again, the collector streets?
anything yellow on here is a collector street, and so we don't necessarily. Our code does not define what makes a collector street. Our code says a collector street is as determined by the master plan. So that is something else we talked about when I think you, John, Chuck, and Tony and I sat down. If there's something existing that's not a collector street that we think should be, that's a good point. We talked about making Weber Heights Drive a collector street with now all the construction going on there. So since we don't have, it's not like where two local access streets connect makes a collector. We have to determine what is a collector, just as we do with a major road. I don't think we necessarily have to create any new major roads. Those are, I think, pretty much set right now, and the ones that have been major roads have seen the increased traffic, and we're fine there. But there's definitely some collector streets we could add. And it not only helps with our planning, because we can have some more requirements on collector streets with our code, but in the future when you're applying for grants, you have to have it designated as a certain type of street before you can get funding for it. So,
Any other questions, discussion? Can't believe we got homework over our break.
So do you want a printed report when we get this to you when we go through this? Do you want it documented and written, or we can
you
sit
can
down and
email me
do
your
it verbal?
comments. Just, I would say, send me what you think. If there's changes, you can just do it with a pen, scan it in, drop it off at City Hall, and then I will collect everyone's comments and have it at the next meeting.
Okay, so you want it before the next meeting then?
Yeah, that preferably, because what I'd like to do is have a report in your packet.
Okay.
And you can say you did it in 2018.
There you go. Just the adoption will be done in 19. Yeah.
So Sal, just to be clear, you want us to basically go through everything on this list and say, if we're meeting it, not meeting it, and what more you.
Yeah, I would say prioritize what you think that we're not focusing on.
Okay.
And there's also just something good to refresh everyone's memory of what the objectives are. I mean, obviously, some things in here, you'll be able to tell, well, it's not, not applicable. But, if we're not meeting it, in parks and stuff, it's not necessarily something this board would deal with.
Sure.
But I would say, this, this is something that we can focus on.
The teacher.
If we want to really focus on aesthetics, we could start looking at, I think a low-hanging fruit, and I use that term cautionally, would be, if we're going to do architectural guidelines, it would be for signage, that kind of thing.
Okay, so really, you want us to focus on things that really pertain to this board, or things that don't necessarily pertain to this board but need to be a priority? I think
we can do both. I mean, yeah, because I definitely what pertains to this board, but if we have something that you think community-wide we're not meeting, we can compile a report and say, look, the Planning and Zoning Commission agrees that this is not being met community-wide.
Okay.
And then we can address that with council.
Okay, I just want to make sure we give you what you want.
Right, I appreciate it. And when I say when I had comments back for January, I'm not going to plan the public hearing in January to adopt any changes. That'll just be so then it'll be an item on the agenda for us to discuss what actually we want to change, and then the public hearing would be in February.
Okay, so we can have discussion at the next meeting as far as just maybe coming to consensus on what we see as a priority?
Right.
Okay.
So why don't you give us a date you want it back by?
That has everything.
Can you do that? I think
it goes
I
out
work better on deadlines.
This
So.
is this year.
Yeah, it goes out the Monday before, so if I can have everything by the Friday, let's see.
Will that give you enough time to are you going to try to comply what we're doing?
Yeah, typically I set the Friday before, 2 Fridays before P&Z, Gina and I
Fourth.
normally
4th
have
of
some
January,
time set aside.
2 days after the new year.
So 14th. Yeah, that'd be the 4th.
Okay, so
Okay.
So
January.
you want you want our information back to you by the 4th.
Yep, because then we would send out our packet on Monday.
Okay.
This is kind of,
Yeah, bummer.
I better not get a C.
Sorry, guys. Hey, I will say, we tried to host a meeting, and only 3 people showed up, so. So I'll give a star to those 3. Chuck, John, and Tony came.
Well, I think we have seen, I think, some improvements in affordable housing. It's good to see.
Yeah.
Anxious to see how the one we had tonight turns out.
He did have some renderings. The reason I didn't put it in the packet is that our code at this point doesn't require him to submit that, and I didn't want to strong arm him into thinking he had to
No.
hold on to that. But I can share those with you guys. He has, I mean, it does have brick on all 4 sides. It's not 100% brick. And then it did have just a quick 3D rendering of how the quick layout plan of how the apartments we laid out. You know,
I hadn't thought about
but that could obviously be changed, so.
Yep. I think it's good. And the senior housing that's off High Street out there, I guess it's called senior housing.
Yep.
I hear there's a waiting list over 100 people to get in.
Yep, and they have submitted their phase 2 to the state for their tax credits, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, it was necessary or needed in the community, so more,
going strong.
too. Yep.
That's all I got.
Anything else by board members? Have a good Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, to everybody.
I heard Sal won the open house.
He was excellent.
Oh, Sal won?
Great.
Yay.
Was it a competition?
Best margaritas of Beatty House.
Yeah.
Cookies.
That's one way to sell tour tickets.
It was. Well, I didn't advertise I was going to do that, but after I went on the tour, I realized, because we did it internally, everyone had much more house to look at than mine. So I better do something.
So he had to make up for it.
So we had a little
We're all
fire in the
happy when
back.
they
And
left.
Yeah.
but it was good. Had the whole town in my house last night.
600,
750.
750.
Wow, that's a
people,
great
wow.
turnout. That's great.
Is that how many tickets they limited it?
700, and then they said with the ones that gave away to sponsors and everything.
Okay. Wow.
That's great.
Old lady with a bunch of people.
It was.
We had to turn people away at 7:15. I was walking out to go to the landing, meet my parents for dinner, and people wanted to get. I'm like, I already cleaned up, so.
No, that's not true.
His decorating was lovely.
Oh, I did. Yeah, Hillerman's
And the
did it.
family.
Hillerman's did it.
Yeah, I actually said no to the. Is this off? It's still on.
I'll entertain one last motion, then we can.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
I thought you already did that.
Okay.
Wait for
All
it.
right, there you go.
Hot mics.